All right. All right, you guys. Hopefully, you guys can hear me. I want to go over creative financing. We were going to go over just all financing, and I still might, Tarsha might be joining us. Um, I got the bigger screen on. Hopefully, you guys have the handout. Respond in the comment section. If I keep the handout this size the way the screen is now, will you guys be able to? Will you guys be able to see the screen? Well, let me see. Keith's texting me. Let me see. Can you see this screen well, or should I make it a bigger screen? And you guys should have a handout to follow. Oh, this is good. Okay, good. All right, all right, you guys. So this is not going to take long. Um, okay, and then Ralph, I'll call you right after this meeting. Um, all right, so this is probably going to take 30 minutes, you guys. But you have the handout. Take some notes. If you have any questions, just DM me. You guys can go to my Instagram. I'll put my Instagram up really quickly so that you guys can just jot it down, follow me. But you can also DM me here. Greg Bennett Invest. Greg Bennett Invest. Follow me there. So just DM me or call me. Most of you guys have my number. So in this day and age, the type of market that we're in now, creative financing strategies should lead the way. Now, when we're talking about creative financing, we're really talking about really the use of other people's money to buy properties. And so for the most part, we're not going out getting loans on our own. We're using we're keeping mortgages on the property. We are having the owners finance, be the bank. We're doing lease options, getting private money, things like that. So that's what creative financing is. And in this market with interest rates so high, I think creative financing strategies should be a first option when you're finding properties. And again, if you guys have any comments, go ahead and put them in the comment section. I see a lot of you guys. A lot of you guys are in the house. Good. Suffering from allergies, you guys. So look, you guys, let's get started. So the first property I ever bought, I was 23 years old. I had read about creative financing and owner financing through some information from a gentleman by the name of Carlton Sheets. So I sent away for his information. I believe while I was in college, got his information and read it from cover to cover. And so I felt like I was ready. Saw an ad in the Washington Post where this gentleman was selling his house in DuPont Circle, which wasn't far from me. I was living in the Adams Morgan section of Northwest DC at the time. Just graduated from college. And so I said, let me check this out. They were actually offering owner financing. So I went and looked at it. It was a one-bedroom condo right in the heart of DuPont Circle. And so I said, I'm interested. And I'm interested in you holding a note for 5 years. And, just getting out of college, I didn't have a lot of money. I had, I was working, but I felt like it was going to take me, that 5 years to, establish good credit or credit, save my money, and be able to qualify. Long story short, they agreed to my terms. And so my terms were I'm buying it for 50,000. I was paying on a note at the time. It was called a balloon loan, and so I was just paying interest only payments to the owner for 5 years. And I don't remember what that number was, what I was paying, but anyway, so we agreed. I did some light fix up to the property, and I put an ad. I put an ad in the Washington Post to get for a renter, and I found one. It was actually an au pair from England, and she rented that property out almost for the whole 5 years. And I had a positive cash flow. I rented out to her for more than what I owed. And then what I did in the end was I refinanced, um, paid off that balloon of 50,000, and I held on to that property. Now, that's an example of owner financing, and that's something that you guys can do. I had another property recently last year, the latter part of last year, a property in Baltimore where the owner was having a hard time getting rid of the property. And so I just kept negotiating with her, um, another $50,000. And I said, I'll give you 25,000 up front when we go to settlement, and I'll give you the other 25,000 in 4 months. So she's held that 25, and so that 25 is due. So I'm in the process of refinancing that property because I own it free and clear. Aside from that 25,000, I owe it free. I owe that property free and clear. Hoping to get an appraisal for 200,000, and then get the money, pay her back, and then rent the property out. And so there's different ways to do owner financing. Again, you guys ask questions in the comment section. Look up owner financing. If you have a property and you want me to take a look at it, I'm happy to do so. But in this day and age with the interest rates, where there's a lot of short sales, there's foreclosures, all the above, owner financing is a good option. It's a really good option. Some of you guys have had deals that I've actually looked at that you guys have actually purchased that would have made good owner financing deals. I think one of you guys on here now has a property now that would have been a good owner financing. And some of these other options that I'm going to go over. And so just keep in mind that when you guys go through buying properties, what are the options? And I like to use financing the deals through a lender as my last option. Because most of these options that I'm going to go over, nobody's checking your credit. You need little money down. And you don't have to go out and get a loan right away. Let's see, Jade has a question. When you do owner financing, do you draft an agreement or does it go through the title? So Jade, it's both. You do draft an agreement. There's an owner financing agreement I'm happy to share. And you do actually close on the deal. So the one in Baltimore I closed on. And they actually held a note for the 25,000. But yeah, you go to settlement. And so I wrote up I don't know if I may have used a promissory note on that one. So I think I used a promissory note of 25. So I paid 25 up front, and then a prom note of 25 that got recorded with the title company. Owner financing, you guys use it. Lease options. Now, most of you guys have heard of lease options. Some of you guys have done lease options. Again, in this market, it's a good time to use lease options. I had a property, probably I think it was my first year selling real estate, so in the mid 90s. There was a property that to this day I absolutely love. It was in the middle of a cul-de-sac, back to a lake. It was a dream home for me at that time. Now I'm in my early 30s at this time, just starting to sell real estate. I'm showing properties. Now this house was a 4-bedroom colonial 2-car garage, way too big for me, but I fell in love with it. So I ran across it because I had just started selling real estate. I showed that house to a client, and when I saw that house, I was just crossing my fingers, almost praying that they didn't like the house, and they didn't like the house. They bought another house on the other side of town. So then I said to myself, how am I going to buy this house? I'm 30 years old. It's more than, almost more than I can afford, way too big for me, but I just fell in love with it. So it was in a buyer's market. They were having a hard time selling. So I approached them. I said, if I can lease your property for 2 years and have the option to buy, I will buy it in 2 years. And they went for it. They wanted out. They were moving to Montgomery County. They wanted out. And so we signed a lease option agreement where the rental payment was $1,500. I had an option. There's an option. Looks like I paid an option fee of $1,500 for 2 years. When the 2 years came, I was ready. I did some light modifications to the house. Again, it was just beautiful, beautiful house. I was ready. And so when 2 years came, I refinanced, paid off the owner, and had that house. And so that was a lease option. And so there are lease option agreements. You want to make sure that you have the option to sublease, which I didn't. I lived in it. The option to purchase, and that's what I had. And so I've done lease options. I've done a lot of lease options where I've sublet it out, or primarily I've sublet the properties out and then refinance after the option period. Now, the negative thing about lease options is, you guys, you just have to, because I've seen most of them fail. The reason they fail is because after the option period, like a year or two, the person owning the option, they're not ready to put financing on the property, and so they lose their option fee, their deposit, and they have to move out the house. So if you're going to do a lease option, you want to make sure that you've got a really good exit strategy, meaning that you're going to be able to get financing to refinance, whatever that is. You don't have to purchase the property. You can make cash flow off of that. And so you guys heard of Airbnbs. So what an Airbnb for most people is a glorified lease option. That's what it is. Most people who own Airbnbs don't own the properties. They're leasing them out on a master lease with the option of making some modifications to the house and renting the house out as an Airbnb. And they'll generally have them for a longer period of time, let's say 5 years. So the master lease is 5 years. They make so much money with the Airbnb that they could care less about owning the property or buying the property. And when the lease period is over, they either renew or they move on. So most people, if you've heard of people that have, 10, 15, 20, even 100 units, Airbnb, they don't own them. They're subletting. They're doing a lease option. And so lease options are good strategies, you guys, for cash flow. Let's see. Okay, Jade, with these options, is the purchase guaranteed to you as the tenant? So yes. So a lease option done correctly, Jade, is 2 contracts. It's a purchase and sales agreement. So when I did my lease option, I locked into a sales price, and I locked into, at the time, I believe it was 200,000. So I locked into 200,000. What was good about that was over those 2 years, the market appreciated. So I gained equity doing the lease option. And so you should have a purchase and sales agreement and basically a rental agreement. Is there a risk of the owner to sell to someone else? There's no risk, Jay, because you have a contract. If they sell, you can sue them. What some people do is if they think that they're going to sell, they put a lien on the property. But it's no problem. You can there's never a risk of that because you've got a legal binding contract. And so Karen is asking, a lease option will work for the properties that are not distressed, right? Like pre-foreclosures. Let's see. A lease option will work for properties that are not distressed. Yeah, you don't want to do a lease option for a property that's distressed. I'm getting ready to go over a subject to, Karen, and that's where it's better for distressed property, a subject to, not a lease option. All right. Any other questions for lease options? All right. So let's go to the next one. Subject to. Now, this is my favorite. You're buying the property subject to the existing mortgage. Let me see if I can get this to come down a little bit. Here we go. And so this, I've probably done more subject twos than any other strategy. And so Karen is right. So we had this property in Fort Washington, townhouse. A buddy of mine was renting it out. He was having a hard time selling it. He was having a hard time with his tenants. And so I said to him, if you can get your tenants out of the property, I will buy your property subject to your existing mortgage. I will buy it and you keep your existing mortgage on the property. And so he got the tenants out. I brought his mortgage current because he was behind about $5,000. So I brought his mortgage current. Now, by bringing his mortgage current and putting in $20,000 in renovations, all the numbers still worked. All the numbers still worked in terms of the Mayo formula. So all of these, you guys, they have to work according to the Mayo formula, or it's not going to work. You still have to have that cushion, that equity built into the property. So Karen, he was distressed. And so I said to him, I'll buy it. And so there's a lease option, a subject to agreement that we signed. I paid him $5,000 when he signed the agreement, and I paid him another $5,000 when he came and signed the papers at settlement. So when he came to settlement, he got another $5,000. So in all, he got $10,000. Now, keep in mind that on the subject to, the property is still in the owner's name. And so I flipped that property and sold it for $250 in 90 days, paid off his $123,000 mortgage, paid him a total of $10,000. And then after my expenses of renovating and, the rest was mine. So that was a good deal. I had another one in Olney, Maryland, many years ago where I basically did the same thing. It was a subject to, but this time I did a subject to for 2 years. Now that is risky. Jade asked about risk. That is risky. Normally with a subject to, you want to be in and out because you want to make sure that there's no liens. No liens can come on the property. But the cash flow was so good. I brought his mortgage current. It was a townhouse in Olney, Maryland, Montgomery County. He had been in there for a while, but he was getting ready to lose it. Didn't want to have really anything to do with the property. Had a bunch of built-in equity. And so I fixed it up, rented it out Section 8 for about 2 or 3 years. Then I sold it, gave him some money, and then I kept the rest. And so that was a good one. So you can do a subject to, on a rental property, but I would advise not to because too much can happen in a year or two. They can try to, but if you do that, I would put a lien on the property. As a matter of fact, the subject to agreement that I have, my attorney drew it up with the intentions on using that contract to put a lien on the property. And then, of course, once you sell the property, you just release your own lien. So that's the subject to, you guys. Any questions on subject to? I'm moving kind of fast, but that's the subject to sale. You're buying the property, you're keeping the mortgage, the existing mortgage on the property. Now, again, all the numbers have to fit, but it's good in a distressed situation. If it's like maybe a short sale, but maybe not, pre-foreclosure if the numbers work, distressed owner just wanting to get rid of the property. All those situations are good for subject to. And again, I've done more of those than anything. All right, number 4. And so some of these, you guys, you can combine strategies. And so using private money. So generally, when I've flipped properties over the last, say, 10 years, I buy my properties using none of my own money. And so here's how I do it. For example, this one So when you, Jade, so that lien prevents any type of sale. Absolutely. And so this property on Longfellow Street in Petworth, DC, I believe a wholesaler found me that property. Great numbers. I think I bought it for, I want to say $350. I think all in I was at about 400, including the 400 included the wholesaler's money and the after repair value. Oh, here the numbers are right here. Does it say what the ARV is? I think the ARV was 800. I think the ARV was 800. And so what I did was I used a hard money lender. And so the hard money lender financed the acquisition and the rehab. Now I needed money from a private lender for closing costs and to get the contractor started on the first draw. And so I probably borrowed around, used private lender, 50,000 for closing. Okay, so I borrowed 100,000. I use that for closing costs and to get the contractor started or pay the first draw. So I use none of my own money. I used the private lender and the hard money lender. Renovated the property, did a real good renovation, staged it, sold very quickly, sold for $825, paid off the private lender, paid off the hard money lender, and then, the rest was mine. And so that was a good deal. And like I said, I did that one. And some of you guys that have been with me for a while remember these. I know Keith remembers these. So that was Longfellow. At the same time, I did Decatur Street, which was a few blocks away. I did Otis Street, which wasn't far from there. I did like 3 or 4 at the same time, all flips, and all the same formula. I didn't use any of my own money. Hard money lender, and then private lenders. Any questions about that? When we're investing in real estate, you guys, we want to do everything we can to build our wealth using other people's money. We want to utilize other people's money. Other people being hard money lenders, private lenders, the traditional banks. Tarsha may be coming on. We want to use very little of our own money, if possible. Even if we use our money and then refinance and get our money back, that's a win. That's you really using none of your own money. All right, so the last one is, you guys, and hopefully you guys have this handout. If not, just let us know. We'll get it to you. I think Keith emailed this handout out to everybody. But if you didn't get it, just like I said, just text me or DM me. We're happy to send this out. All right. There's a lot of different creative financing strategies depending on the situation. But the last one is joint venture. Um, and so this property here in Brandywine, I did a joint venture actually with my contractor. And so found the property. Um, I called one of my contractors to come out and give me an estimate. And he came out to give me an estimate. He said, "Can we partner on this?" He said, "You found the property." He said, "If you can get the financing, I'll do the rehab. I'll just do the rehab at cost, and then we'll split the profits." And so basically that's what we did. We flipped it. And so looks like the purchase price was 178. Rehab was about 50. Really the rehab was probably about 110, 125. But he did it at cost. Um, ARV was 390, and we split the profits on this one. And so what was good for me was since my contractor was a partner, I didn't have to worry about micromanaging the project. I didn't have to worry about coming out to the project every day. I very rarely on that one even went to the project. And he did it. He did it on time. He did it under what we said the budget was going to be, and he was motivated to get it done because he actually stood to make more money, more profit partnering with me than if he was just a contractor on that deal. And that one worked out. I've done joint ventures with other equity partners. I've done joint ventures with some of our coaching students where I got the financing and and they put up the money. Or did one with one of our coaching students where they actually found the property. They actually found the property. They really just wanted my expertise. I think I got the financing, but they put up all the money, closing costs, money. They put up all the money. And I brought my contractor in, and we at the end of the day we split the profits. And they just wanted to make sure that they got through the project. It was a DC flip. It was a full gut. They had never done that, and they didn't want to lose money. They knew that they had a good deal. So they brought me on as a 50-50 partner. And I just really brought my expertise and my contractor, and we renovated that property and got it done. All right. Jade is asking, do you do an LLC for a joint venture or draft an agreement? And so what I normally do is we do a joint venture agreement, but the two LLCs own that joint venture. So that joint venture is like an LLC. And my entity and then their entity owns the joint venture. That's how I normally do it. Now, when I say joint venture, I've done it that way, but I think the better way, Jay, to do it is just do a multi-member LLC. So you just do one LLC, like you're asking, and then both parties are on that one LLC. I like the joint venture agreement because I like the language that's in there. Our agreement, you guys should have that. The coaching students should have the joint venture agreement, but I like the language in there. It talks a lot about how the profits are split, opening up a bank account. What happens if one of the partners in the joint venture agreement passes away? Do they pass away in joint tenancy or tenants in common? That kind of thing. But that language can be in your operating agreement in your multi-member LLC. And so you can do it either way, Jay. lately I've been doing it as a multi-member LLC. And that's the joint venture, you guys. Any questions about anything that I've talked about? I knew I was going to keep this short. I'm still suffering from allergies, but let's see. Do you have an LLC? It says, do you have an LLC or joint ventures or draft? Oh, I've already answered that question. All right. Any other questions as it relates to these creative financing strategies? When I look at a property, as I said, first thing I look at is, can I do some type of creative financing? And I learned this. I just read books, Carlton Sheets and some other books. My very first deal, as I said, I'm 23 years old, never bought a house before, not even to live in. I was living in an efficiency apartment in Adams Morgan, where I ran across that that ad in the classified section in Washington Post. I'm 23. I just went down there and just started talking. But so that's the other thing. You just can't be afraid. Now, if you're looking at a property, you think it might be good for one of these strategies, just call me. I'm happy to assist you. Happy to look at the numbers. Happy to give you my opinion on whether this is good for some type of creative financing. And so Lily is asking a really good question, and I'm glad she asked it. How do you find private money? And so the answer is, the way I've been able to do it is I was able over a period of time to establish a track record. And so that's what you guys are going to have to do. You're going to have to get, 2 or 3 projects underneath your belt. And then now you can go to someone and say, this is what I've done. These are the numbers. I was successful. These are the numbers on this project that I need financing. And so Lily, so that, and then, so who are the people? They're everybody, you just, in our area, there's a lot of people who have 401ks, a lot of people here in the DMV that have thrift saving money and thrift savings plans. They could be your friends, church members, family. If you can establish that you have a track record and you know what you're doing and the numbers work on a particular deal that you want financing, you'll get financing. Because here's the alternative. Most of the people that you know have money in the bank where they're getting less than 1%, or a CD where they're getting less than 2%. Even in the stock market hasn't been doing that well. They may have money. We get a lot of solo 401k money where if you offer a 10% return on their money, you're doing better than the stock market. You're doing better than the stock market. You're doing better than if they're pulling money out of like their cash value out of their insurance policy, which they're getting maybe 5 or 6% at best. And so you're doing better than wherever their money is. As a private lender, I generally pay, and I've paid more than this, but generally 10%. Generally 10%. And so it's just about having that track record, having some experience, doing a couple deals, and then you can just go from there. All right. Any other questions, you guys? All right. Well, I think that's it. I don't know if we have anything else, Keith, but if you guys have any other questions as it relates to creative financing, maybe next time we meet, we'll talk more traditional financing, so that most of these deals that we have here, eventually you're going to have to refinance into permanent financing. Or you can use these strategies to flip. My preference would be to use these strategies to buy and hold. And so if you read more about creative financing, there's a lot more strategies. These are the strategies that I've used in my career that I just have a lot of experience with. All right, you guys, take care. God bless, and we will talk to you guys soon. Good night.